David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza are clearly living up to there's no complacency here, right? You got to perform to play. And we've seen it now. Jeff McNeil has not been playing a lot. It's been a miserable season for Jeff McNeil. Jose Iglesias was tearing it up in the minors, a veteran second baseman, and he's gotten a shot with the Mets now. And in 7 games, I mean, he's hitting over 400 right now, Joe. I know it's a small sample size, but there's no denying that Iglesias is just in a very short time been a significantly more impactful player than what Jeff McNeil was offering the team. And it helps that they hit from opposite sides of the plate where you could get some matchups in play. Shout out to your classic phrase of platoon, Joe. But in all seriousness, what has been your observations of what feels different with this management? It's not just Mendoza, but of course it is Mendoza, but Stearns as well, especially coming off of a year. We've done a lot of podcasts together, and we don't miss many weeks covering this team, whether baseball's going on or it's the offseason. During the Buck Showalter era, something that we raised an eyebrow to and questioned a lot was the reliance on Daniel Vogelback without any production. And it wasn't just Vogelback. It was a lot of different players that were relied on and weren't producing, and the Mets never tried to shake it up. They never gave Mark Vientos a chance during that era. Mark Vientos is having a tremendous season so far. Let's see if he can keep it going. It feels like, and it's not incredible, it's not necessarily going to turn the Mets into a playoff contender, although we're going to see. There is a different feel and a different level of expectations in this era of the Mets, Joe.
You have to set a culture. You have to set up accountability for these players. Look, in previous regimes, Omar Narvaez would still be on this roster, and he would have been starting most of the time because of his salary. Jeff McNeil obviously is making over $12 million a year, and Jose Iglesias is a guy that they call it from AAA. But what it comes down to is the best players got to play, and the player that's performing the most has to play. And I think that's something that, sample sizes matter. Like, I think fans may take this to an extreme where, this time next year, if someone has a bad week and a half to start the season, they're going to be like, what about accountability? I thought these guys have to sit if they're not playing. So there's going to be like a little bit of a gap there. But what it shows to me is David Stearns is able to put his pride and ego to the side and be willing to cut bait on players. It's not been a ton of the guys that he got, obviously, but he's willing to cut bait on a player if they're not performing. And Carlos Mendoza making out the lineup card, he's going to put the best lineup that he can to win that given day. And if that means Jose Iglesias is playing and $12.5 million of Jeff McNeil is sitting on the bench, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And I think it's a good sign for where the Mets are headed. And I think it's something that, while maybe this season doesn't get the ultimate end result that we're all hoping for, this is setting up for how this organization is going to be run going forward. And that is something I think we can be optimistic about.